So my name is Philip Martin, and I'm the co-owner of Philip Martin Gallery with my partner Portia Hine, who I hope you've had a chance to meet either at the fairs or at the gallery. I hope that everybody is doing well today. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Today we're going to talk with Laurie Nye about her show, This World Only. How you doing, Laurie?
Hi, I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited to have a chance to talk with you about the show. It feels like really, it's a great show, and it also feels like a lot of really exciting things happen in the course of sort of making it and what you were thinking about. Do you want to start maybe, where would you like to start? Maybe telling us about the title or something that's on your mind?
This world only, it's like came to mind a year ago or something. It
Yeah.
wasn't, I usually like am reading something or I don't know, titles can come from so many things. I have friends that keep lists of like what could be a title.
Yeah.
It's usually something that just happens, you know, under no circumstance or whatever. So
Yeah.
it just came into my brain and it stuck with me. And it was just some kind of feeling of like urgency uh,
Yeah.
about the planet and about, just everything that's happening, obviously, in the world that is very stressful.
Yeah.
But like maintaining this kind of um, hope and kind of being determined to be, to be an imaginative uh, thinker and doer while all
Hmm.
this is still going on.
Yeah.
That takes a lot of work uh,
Yeah.
to do that, to stay in that space.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing it's making me think of is one way of connecting with peers for a lot of people is Instagram. Of course, it's a way that one can see work, but it's also a community. And it was really exciting when you did post the title and kind of talked a little bit about it. We included some of that also in the press release. How does it feel to how did that feel to have the community kind of react with such strong feeling about the title and the mood that you were in with this work?
It felt really good. It felt, validating to hear that. I also knew from my community what we're all thinking about, and then we
Hmm.
get together we get together and we discuss and we think about these things and actively, try to participate
Yeah.
um, in voicing our protest. Um,
Hmm.
and so, I know it's on everybody's mind, and I was just trying to figure out how to navigate it my way.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, without like making a bunch of black paintings.
Yeah.
So,
Well, you've done something different, obviously. I mean, you have some exciting new motifs in this work, and you're really offering a kind of opportunity for the viewer to kind of have both a experience of nature externally as a motif, as depicted in painting, but also internally as viewers as they receive and experience their own perceptions of the work. Do you want to talk a little bit about the new motifs and how these paintings are maybe working or?
yeah, it's hard for me to wrap my mind around what's going on. I mean, I'm just as immersed in it as anybody else, and sometimes I'm not 100% sure what's happening.
Yeah.
So I've noticed over the course of the show, like that yellow tree, what is it called? Happy Hollow. That was
Hmm.
the first one. That was like a year ago. I had started that painting. And then I had done some things in between. We had done a fair. And I just held on to that one as an anchor to
Yeah.
kind of, you know, try to see if it would lead me in a direction. Um, and it feels like it's part of like the work I was doing previous to this newer work and
Hmm.
kind of bridging to this newer work a
Hmm.
little bit. So it's interesting to me because that's like the earliest one. And then after that, it starts to shift in some way,
Yeah.
like the Mimi's Garden painting, which my friend,
Hmm.
my good friend Mimi Louder,
Hmm.
who is a really wonderful artist, and she is someone that I have a relationship with, and I visit her garden, and
Yeah.
we talk about life, and we talk about what's happening in the world. And
Yeah.
she was leaving she suddenly, was left LA
Hmm.
and moved to Northern California. So this
Hmm.
was like our last moment in her garden. And I just took a picture and I ended up making just a really quick drawing of that. And that was the
Hmm.
next like sort of larger kind of painting. And I don't typically do, it's a little bit different of a painting for me. I
Yeah.
think there's like a little bit of nods to like some sort of maybe some trompe in the
Yeah.
I can only point to it, but nobody can see what I'm doing. But there's a little trompe in the trunks of the tree. Like there's a little bit of like
Yeah.
realistic washiness. And then everything else is very me. Like it's
Yeah.
very much my vernacular that
Yeah.
you're used to seeing.
Yeah. And so,
So
of course, this is the painting that you were referring to as this kind of painting that you held on to. And then
yeah.
this is the painting that you're referring to that's called Mimi's Garden for the audience. I should have been doing that while you were talking, but I was like, wait a minute, how does the webinar work? So my
How do you do this tech stuff?
um, so we'll move on. Yeah, I mean, I think that what's really exciting, and we'll get to the individual images of the paintings, but there's also some new moves in in the work, which I thought was really exciting. You kind of maybe mentioned a trompe l'oeil aspect, but also a there's a real touch change in the work, at least to me. I was really hit by, we've talked about different painters that you've introduced me to, like Serussier is a painter I hadn't really looked at that much. You also introduced me to Kuno Amiot. Is that how you pronounce it? The Swiss painter?
Yeah, I wish I knew how to pronounce it, but let's just
Yeah.
go with
Someone will help us. Um, these are people that, they're in your mind, sort of, maybe, but I never really looked so much. And then I had this real experience. And here we are kind of back to this painting in Houston at the MFAH, the museum, which is just such an amazing museum. And I was in front of an Emile Bernard painting, who is another artist that we've talked about because you often refer to the Nabi, those French painters of the 19th century and early
yes.
20th century as kind of sources. And so I was really struck by how in this show, this kind of something I see in Bernard or was kind of identified for me. And then I was like, that immediately made was I was thinking about you as sort of non-natural colors and um, these kind of compositions where you have line and you have a kind of asymmetry that's kind of driving a composition. And I should just get to the actual artworks maybe over the installation shots, but there's driving that. And then also in this painting, and as you're talking about this kind of touch in the trunk, there's also this feeling of a new touch that's kind of evolving within this kind of structure of lines and composition. Does any of that resonate, or would you like to respond to any part of what I just tried to say?
Yeah, I mean, there's some older and newer moves, and I'm always trying to figure out how to rectify how to have those be together in the same painting.
Yeah,
So
totally.
strange because I've been painting for so many years, and you'd think that
Hmm.
I'd just be like, this is my style, and but I'm always like sort of evolving a little bit
Yeah,
because I'm just satisfied with um, visual representation, and I'm always
yeah,
trying to it. Also, there's like this what you're kind of referring to is sort of like broken color.
yeah.
Um,
Okay.
and that is something that is done like by all the impressionists. So you'll see it like it's almost like a mark making, and it's like brushwork or dry
Hmm.
brush, or you
Yeah.
see the artist hand. You see that a lot more, I think, in these paintings. I don't know if
Hmm.
it's a nervous energy thing too, but it's definitely the artist's like human touch that is
Yeah,
very important to me, and specifically. Um,
yeah.
and also, my background in surface design is still there. It's present because there's a lot of like frontal imagery, things that are just like very much on the surface that are
Yeah,
interlocked and
yeah.
continuous. And sometimes it's a little more like perspectival. Like this one's a lot more flat, but
Hmm.
um, it has some of that little brush markiness in it, like up
Hmm.
the sky. And
Yeah.
but then it's also got my kind of design, brain in there that
Yeah.
is like surface design brain and
Yeah.
pattern brain, uh, and how I think about pictorial space in a really strange way.
Yeah.
Um, and so I felt like it melded a little bit in that, which was fun.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about that? If you think about space in a strange way, what do you mean by that?
I was always kind of thinking about space. It was important to me. I had a conversation with my friend Megan Reed, and we were talking about this when she came
Hmm.
to the show. And she pointed out something, I don't know how she worded it, but she really kind of nailed it. And it was like about
Hmm.
perspectival space and how I use, um, how I think about space and how it is kind of a strange thing, I think, in my work, where you'll see a depth or an
Hmm.
indication that, oh, that's in the background.
Yeah.
There's something just right in your face, like very
Yeah.
like, and why do I do that? And why am
Yeah.
I not resolved enough to make it like really a depth and,
Right.
like be true to what people like seem to see, I guess.
Yeah.
But I was studying like American landscape painters and the Hudson River School and stuff like that in grad school. And I
Yeah.
found that it was so strange. It was so different than how the European painters painted. And the
Hmm.
European painters had these landscapes. Obviously, they were much more, I want to say, refined. And the American ones were just so, it was so craggy, and the landscape was raw, and the space was very different. And I was
Hmm.
fascinated by that. But I was trying to figure out how to paint and make sort of these landscapey ideas and have narrative be in it or part of it, or and then point to painting, because I was at Cal Arts, and they were just like coming at me with why painting. So I was thinking about all these crazy things at the same time. And that's when I started to think about perspectival space. I was reading about the Renaissance, and that's the beginning of perspectival space. And then I was trying to figure out how to like penetrate that, because I didn't want
Right.
to just do that in painting. I wanted to painting to be about itself as well.
Yeah.
But I
Hmm.
love the abstract expressionists. I love German expressionism. I love
Yeah.
impressionism. I love painting.
Yeah.
And so I think that surfaceness in my work is very much about that. Uh,
Yeah.
and the perspectival space is some kind of weird, there is like, it's evocative. There is something to that. And I can't
Hmm.
always put my finger on what it is. It is
Hmm.
growing up in the South. It is growing up. Um, and then always kind of doing landscape in some weird way that has evolved over time.
Hmm.
That I have let happen, that I don't
Hmm.
like try to impose too many ideas onto.
Yeah.
It's usually like an image that I'm just fascinated with, like looking at Japanese block prints, or
Hmm.
for instance, this Western one is an image I found because I was really interested in. Lately, I've been kind of interested in celestial events, and the awe of like the skies. It's like awe, like just like the skies, like looking at the skies and being able to like escape, and like
Yeah.
what is there's so much beyond that. And I've always loved science fiction.
Yes.
I was thinking about um, one of my favorite science fiction movies, that and Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So
Uh-huh.
I was thinking about that movie, and I saw this image and it just struck me. And then I kind of tweaked it to make it a little more me. But
Uh-huh.
it's just something that, because I am in the West, and I am,
Yeah.
I've lived in the West now for like 25 years.
Yeah.
Um, I just want to occasionally I want to do a Western painting or a painting of
Yeah.
LA, or, and not always be in my head in the Southern Gothic, but
Yeah.
I I am comfortable in the Southern sort of Gothic. You
Yeah.
know, I do think that's embedded in me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
But
this is a new motif. This is a brand new motif. How did it kind of come about? I mean, you mentioned, you probably just said so, but I don't know if you have more to talk about in terms of the process of how this motif came about, or how it hits you, perhaps.
I just wanted to start painting skies more. I wanted to
Yeah.
get into, I like collecting images of galaxy stuff, like a
Yeah.
NASA image,
Yeah.
and um going beyond our galaxy and what's there. And like maybe 10 or 15 years ago, I was doing strictly science fiction. I
Yeah.
was like collaborating with these muses that were like interstellar travelers. And my background is a little like it's interesting, and in terms of the paintings, how they've evolved.
Yeah.
And so there's a little bit of that that's still there that I love. Um, is that sort of fantasy that's
Yeah.
in, inside my vernacular somewhere, that's wanting to get out and like
Yeah.
when I'm making a painting. And so here it is again, like the celestial.
This is
It,
a
I
great
thought,
painting.
but yeah, it's in this one too. This is so funny. I'm gonna have to find the image of this, but I found an image of, I think it's a carpet or a rug or something, and it's just like
Okay.
two weird things that are going like this. I don't know. It's just like, and
Yeah.
it was a design that stood out to me, like
Yeah.
just the way they were on the picture plane. I
Hmm.
took the kind of idea of those weird wonky
Hmm.
shapes or something, and then I made them into trees.
Yeah.
This is my process. It is never straightforward.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then I was just inspired by a lot of different things, and this painting came together very easily, very quickly.
Yeah. This painting is a great painting. I can't, I don't know why it hits me the way that it does, if it's the color, if there's something unexpected about it, or it's just really, this is a painting that when I saw it, I was just really excited. It
Well, I
feels
mean,
really familiar, but not like anything I've seen or could be conceiving somehow.
yeah, this painting was really easy, and I think when they're like so
Amazing.
easy, and it's also there's not. I didn't do a lot of underpainting in this one.
Hmm.
Um, it's yeah, it's pretty heartfelt.
Yeah.
The design of the imagery worked out in this such a way. It's kind of presentational
Yeah.
because the trees are kind of framing it, and then
Hmm.
there's the moonscape, and then all the starry stuff, and then it's like that side area is just
Hmm.
like it's like bookended with like all this life and flora and fauna imagery.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I love making that painting.
One of the things in your practice that you might want to talk about, or I think people would be interested to hear, is perhaps a little bit also about how, in addition to direct mark making, you talked about broken color and that kind of thing, about how you also apply paint and then wipe it off.
Yeah, that's an ongoing thing. That's probably a surface design thing. Like there's too much paint, I have to take it away because, um, in undergrad, I painted with uh, like dye and ink and stuff,
Hmm.
mostly dyes on silk
Hmm.
until I started to paint and become more of a painter.
Hmm.
Um, so there's some of that muscle memory in my work, I guess.
Yeah.
And I'm such a drawer. Like I draw a lot, and I
Yeah.
think that's another thing maybe that factors into what I do on the canvas. I haven't
Hmm.
been drawing as much lately, so maybe that's why you're seeing a lot of mark making on the canvas. It's like I'm getting two of those things in there at the same time. In fact, someone mentioned that. They were like, these remind me of like it's a mixture of what you do in your drawings with what you've been doing in your paintings
Right.
and a baby. And I think that's maybe true. Like I think
Mhm.
there's more of the mark making in the painting because I'm also kind of rendering kind of the way I do with color pencil and stuff.
Yeah,
Uh,
you do a lot with color pencil and also pastel. And I
yeah.
definitely think that there's a kind of internal logic in your color pencil drawings that has to do with surface, the paper you're drawing on, the tools you're using, the repetition of the hand, but also just the way in which the material simply builds itself up of its own accord. And it reminds me of Seurat, and it comes together to kind of the way Seurat's drawings have this thing where you're like, it's really interesting that you're making this because it feels so specific to this part of just your experience. And then your paintings also kind of do cross over. They have that thing, but they're kind of different works, though they totally relate. And I see a conversation between them in your paintings and a desire perhaps to kind of figure in the paintings what's in the drawings, but it's always going to involve an expansive translation, for lack of a better word, process that I think as a viewer is really enjoyable to watch you pursue, and also intellectually and creatively and pictorially really interesting.
you. Yeah, I really enjoy everyone kind of making these connections, especially like the opening and hearing what people were talking about.
Yeah.
And that they were, my painterly friends were definitely picking up on this.
Yeah. I mean, and this is an interesting painting because the tree, which is is sort of got you've got the armature of the branches, the armature of the roots. It's starting to create different spaces. Those spaces are treated differently. It's in some sense, though it has such a clear upward thrust, it also could almost be the tree could almost be growing. You could be looking at it growing its roots up. It's just a very interesting painting.
Yeah, that's funny because I just took the drawing of it down. See, that is like one painting. This is the
Oh yeah,
drawing.
there you go. Hmm. Beautiful,
Um,
Lori. Just beautiful.
and so I don't typically do that though. I don't really work from drawings. If I do a draw or work from a drawing, it's usually a pastel because pastel
Yeah.
is like a lot more open-ended. And I just liked the drawing so much, I just thought I'll just make a painting of this. And it took forever. It was just painful. I mean, I was
Yeah.
like, is this going to work out?
Yeah.
But it wasn't, it's just, it was slow labor.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Well, it feels to some degree like the drawing, there's almost like an imprint, when you create a powerful image, you and I have talked about that. When there's a powerful image that one has created, that imprint is in your mind and you come back to it. And
Yeah.
we've talked about Munch and the practice of kind of these motifs that he's doing again and again. And he said very clearly, when you have a motif, it's in you and you need to keep working with it. That's one thing that's part of that experience.
Yeah, I definitely do repeat motifs,
Yeah,
again and again and again.
yeah.
And I do enjoy that because
And
I'm
they
trying to figure
and
out
they
what,
grow and change, as you do that. What's it like to find something new in a motif that you feel like and then you're like, maybe you're find a door and you're like, oh wow, I could do this.
that's like the thing. Like this painting offered a door in the way I handled the trees and how there was a space, a specific space that
Hmm.
was a deep space, and then there's a frontal space, but it was like a kind of perceptual thing was going on that was there was a reality in it, and then it just had a lot of strange things happening all at once for me
Yeah,
that I really enjoyed. There's some spaces like in between the trees that I really love,
yeah.
and like I said, I can't 100% tell you what happened there, but it's like the two things came together in
Yeah.
this painting where the surface and then that sort of like hint at visual representation. That's like
Hmm.
anyway, it's a weird painting, but I love it. I
I think
just
it's
like
I think this is a great painting. I really enjoy how you see the trees kind of immediately, and then you kind of realize that color-wise, you actually are seeing these irises. And then as they start to be the thing that you're seeing most clearly, it then starts to mean that the initial thing that drew you in there, this starts to kind of become a space of some kind. And we talked about the mark making in the drawings. There's that mark making that's there. That's a completely different visual texture and feeling for what that space can do. And I also think that with the wiping, that wiping brings out the luminosity of the canvas, a la Munch. That's again who I think of for that in a certain sense. And this has that luminosity, but then it's also got this touch application over that feeling that still contains the sense of the raw luminous canvas underneath.
I think the one thing that I'm realizing that is really different about this one is like usually you'll see me like I remember in the last show I did a couple or a huge tree that had a huge canopy
Yeah.
and it was filled with like flora and fauna. And then
Hmm.
the background was pretty like just forms. It
Yeah.
wasn't, they didn't have too much going on in them. There wasn't a lot of information, but it was
Hmm.
just like streamlined or whatever. This is sort of flipped where the
Hmm.
tree is kind of more, it's just lines and like, organicism. And then the the kind of the floor and like the foreground, that's where all the flora and fauna is. So it's like a
Yeah.
different, it's like an inverse of what I did in that other show.
Mm.
Um, so there's a lot of like meaty information in the foreground
Yeah.
in this one. Another celestial.
Yeah.
These, I mean, this one has a lot of mark making, and
Mhm.
these are. I always tell people these are my paintings are not for Instagram. My paintings are not for internet, which is I'm very happy about that. But you have to see them in person. They're much more to me vibrant, and they're belonged like they're much better in person. I always get disappointed when I see something on Instagram that I really like, and then I go and I see it, and I'm like, it's not, you know, like that's always like a bummer. But I do think these are really fun to look at in person, especially this one. It reminds me of like it feels kind of like a pastel drawing when I see it in person.
Wow. Yeah.
It's
Yeah. It's
got
just,
like a lot of subtle things going on.
yeah, it's visually just incredibly enjoyable. The feeling of this hillside that could be in front or behind this remarkable movement of lines and it's interesting looking at this scale. I'm really seeing this too in its graphic quality, which reminds me of the kind of when the kind of Cupid type figure is blowing the clouds. That's an idea that I've never thought of, but I'm sort of seeing here.
I like that. That's cool.
Yeah. This is double vision.
Yeah. This is an idea about the lake and how I remembered it. There's a lake that we used to go to, or we had a cabin on a lake in Arkansas. Um, and it reminds me of that lake and then the double rainbow. I just love rainbows. And so it's just some sort of visual, I don't know, it's just kind of trippy.
We have double
Yeah,
rainbows here in
love
LA
it.
all the time. I feel like we had one yesterday or the day before yesterday. I feel like we
Yeah,
constantly have double rainbows all the
I
time.
took pictures of it. Yeah, and then I was in the desert recently and took pictures of another double rainbow there, and I was like, "This made it happen." I'm seeing rainbows a lot now. Like I manifested this.
You mentioned collaborating with muses. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
That's like it was in my work when I was doing the Andromeda stuff, and
Hmm.
there were figures in the work, and I was looking at like Moebius, who was like a famous French illustrator. He did work on Blade Runner, and
Yeah.
like he was really beloved, and his shit is so cool. And so I was really into that for a while, and I just really could dive into that. The color and the realms, like it just fascinated me.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I like was already thinking about ecology, ecological stuff, and catastrophe and disaster. And I've been obsessed with climate change for like a long time.
Yeah.
So I was trying to talk about those things through these muses because they were like these interstellar travelers that were
Yeah.
here, like on Earth to try to help us find some balance and,
Yeah.
get us back in balance. And then they travel to other realms or spaces or planets to do the same thing. So it was like this ecofeminism kind of imagery, but I've kept most of those paintings. I love them,
Hmm.
and I really just tried to like see the world through their eyes,
Yeah.
and that in that way I could have a different voice and not
Mhm.
be
Yeah.
so dependent upon my own voice.
That's
Like I was
interesting.
trying to let myself go, and that was fun. It's really fun.
Yeah. Well, we're approaching the end here. Is there anything we haven't talked about that you might want to talk about as we look at these last few images? Anything we haven't covered?
No, I mean, I've just been really pissed off lately, and I've tried, I've tried to make images that I think have some hope in them and
Yeah.
have, that are looking to a future,
Yeah.
and that still carry like this angst or whatever
Yeah.
in whatever way. And
Yeah.
some of them, not all of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one's tyranny trees.
Yeah.
There's an
Well, I
upside down
think,
side
you
too.
know, the power of interiority is I mean that's one major way to resist is just being a creative human.
Yeah. That's why you're seeing a lot of bats in the work.
Well, thanks so much for doing this with me, Lori. I really appreciate it. The show is on view through November 8th. Please come and see it if you're in the gallery or if you have questions or want more information, just send me an email. I hope you have a great weekend.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks so
You
much
too.
for doing it
Thanks
with
for
me.
having me.